The kingdom of Faramore knew peace for an age, a beautiful, bountiful land. It has been ruled by the royal Rockland family for generations. Such tranquility could not last. Opposed to this peace was the evil demon lord Dimer.
Usual disclaimer applies. I received a review copy of this game for free from Keymailer and the devs, and all opinions are entirely my own. I was not paid to promote this game. Alright, so fair warning, this one was already on my radar before I started doing reviews, and I was super pumped to get a review copy. There's a lot to like here with Arzette the Jewel of Faramore, developed by CDI Software and published by Limited Run Games. As anyone who's looked at the recent content on my channel, it's pretty plain to see that I'm a big fan of the Legend of Zelda series. And Arzette is a love letter to what are definitely the most hated games in the series. 3 Zelda games were licensed to be made on the Philips CDI in the early 1990s, and the Philips CDI was a largely edutainment-based system, though it was capable of fairly intricate cutscenes for the time. What we got were 2 side-scrolling games and a top-down game a la classic Zelda. All 3 were steaming piles, and despite holding the Legend of Zelda name, they had absolutely none of the quality. Flash forward to 2024, and somebody decided, you know what, the concept wasn't bad, it was just the awful execution and terrible hardware. And here we go, we get Arzette, the Jewel of Faramore. Arzette is a side-scrolling platform adventure game, very much in the vein of Zelda 2: The Adventure of Link. If you're like me and think that game is being slept on hard, this will probably hit some very good notes with you. You control Arzette, the Princess of Faramore, 10 years after the capture of the evil Dimer in the titular Stone of Faramore. And of course, because apparently it's all I know how to play, this game incorporates Metroidvania elements. You'll find new abilities that allow you to progress further into the game's many stages. I've finished the game at time of writing, but I still have a bunch of items to go back and find, and I'm definitely going to do a run of the game's hero mode. Of course, you can't have a game without conflict, and one of Dimer's evil lackeys has stolen the titular stone and released his master. It's your job to hunt down the 5 shards of the stone in order to take down Dimer once again and restore peace to the kingdom. Pretty standard story, but honestly, this is really trying to capture the vibe of being an actual CDI game without being absolute garbage on the gameplay side, so most of the charm comes from the very endearing and fully voiced cutscenes, along with the gorgeous painted backgrounds. I love how off-model all the animators go constantly. It reminds me of old Nickelodeon shows like Ren and Stimpy, where the staff was specifically told to never follow a model sheet. I already touched on it a bit, but the graphics are very fun and really evoke a feeling of games from around the era of Wand of Gamelon or Faces of Evil. They nailed the cutscenes. They just ooze personality, despite looking vaguely as though they were drawn in some drawing software that may or may not have come included with Windows. It's all a part of the charm, baby. My favorite is the totally checked out fairy you find in the desert. It reminds me of a Harry Partridge drawing.
Thank you for releasing me, dear. Allow me to heal you.
All right.
As a reward, how about some fairy dust?
No, thanks.
Oh, I insist. Enjoy!
Ain't nobody can draw somebody with nothing behind the eyes like that man. In addition to the gorgeous and extremely varied painted backgrounds, the sprite work is very well done as well, especially Arzette herself and the friendly NPCs you run into. The only knock I have is I found the enemy variety a little lacking. I mean, I know there's not a ton you can do with a 2D side-scroller, but there could have been more variation than guy who takes 2 hits, guy who takes 3 hits, guy who takes 4 hits and throws spear. Now, I only played the game on normal difficulty, but I found the game to be on the easier side. My script says no head here. Why does my script say no head? Now, I only played the game on the normal difficulty, but I found it to be a little bit on the easier side. No overly head-scratching puzzles here. You're mostly going to be challenged by the Amiga-like account of enemies and projectiles on the screen at any given time. Especially when you reach the last few levels. Boy, they like to pack the rooms. Now, I have to say the boss fights were like next to 0 difficulty. It always seemed like right before I would fight a boss, they'd give me an item that not only dealt damage to them, but also rendered all of their attacks almost completely ineffectual. This could be a reference to the old CDI games and that the boss fights were also a joke, so props for staying true to the original design, but I still would have preferred a little bit more of a challenge. Props to Jake Silverman, the composer. This soundtrack is packed to the brim with earworms. It seems like most of the games I've reviewed lately have had very atmospheric soundtracks. Not so here. In Arzette, the focus is on the melody. I hear influences from the Secret of Mana series, as well as in some cases like DOS games such as, Jazz Jackrabbit. You're not going to find bass-heavy electronic music here. What you're going to get is fantasy-forward bops that breathe even more life into whatever stage you happen to be bounding through. And I know if you're like me, you'll find yourself with them playing on loop in your head. And I mean that in the best possible way. I find a lot of focus in music composition for games lately has been big on orchestral scores in the vein of John Williams or Hans Zimmer, whereas games of yesteryear really focused on having a memorable hook. I honestly find that more important when I'm trying to enjoy a video game, but that's entirely subjective. So to wrap things up, Arzette, the Jewel of Faramore, is a fun, if a little easy romp down memory lane, evoking feelings of something closer to what those awful Zelda CDI games should have been. With vibrant painted backgrounds and a supremely hummable soundtrack, Arzette comes with a pretty strong recommendation. The main story isn't the longest thing in the world, it only took me about 4 hours to complete, however I only got about 60% of the items. And with the addition of a hero mode, it seems to offer quite a bit of replayability. If you're a fan of the Adventure of Link, or God forbid the CDI games, get help, I would highly recommend checking out this charm-laden gem. And as always, thank you guys so much for watching, it really means a lot, and please like and subscribe, it's a huge help to the channel. Bye!